Welcome to NAT. My name is Paul Spanos, and today we have the topic of community banking. And with us we have George Prodromidis, who is the branch manager at East Malvern area in Melbourne. George, welcome.
Thank you.
And today the topic is community banking, and we need to sort of say to the audience what community banking is. I'm not sure if they know.
Yep. Well, thanks, Paul. Just to give you a bit of history, if you like, community banking was formed some 16 years ago when the majors were pulling out of small towns. And it was the key leaders within those communities that approached the bank in that stage and asked, how do we get banking back into our community strips, if you like.
Okay. That means it started mainly from the country areas?
It certainly did, yes.
Oh, okay.
Minyip was the town it really started from 16 years ago.
That would be a bit of a comforting thinking that they've got their own bank in the country, isn't it?
From a community perspective, yes, it does, because the way it's formed, you've got your local businesses, your local mums and dads who pledge money and put up shares within that individual branch. And then once it passes its feasibility studies and prospectuses and so forth, there's criteria that needs to be met. Once that criteria is met, then a community branch is formed.
That means what you're saying to me is that I can be part of the shareholders of the bank straight away.
Shareholders of that local community branch?
Of the local community branch.
Absolutely. So some 16 years ago we're talking about this started. Today, 16 years on, we have in excess of 305 community branches, all individual branches, individual boards, directors and staff that work in their own little community catchments operating under the licensing of Bendigo Bank.
And as a community bank, it looks like the concept really grew quite fast. If we're talking about the last 16 years, starting live, and today, how many branches we've got?
305 community branches.
That is throughout Australia?
Throughout Australia.
That is quite extraordinary.
It is, considering that it was a new concept to start with. So the first 4 to 5 years, that was a slow incline. Off memory, I believe in the last 5 years we've been growing something like 20 to 30 branches every year. So it's been in the last 6 to 7 years that we've had that nice steep incline. And it is from there that we managed to generate profits once the community branches become profitable to invest back into our own local communities. Okay,
that means if I'm a part of if I embrace that concept as a local community, and we're talking about community banking, what is it that comes back to me?
What comes back to you as a local, whether you're a business person or just your mum and dad within the community, you're guaranteed to have your banking. You don't need to move out of town to try and do your day-to-day banking. Businesses don't need to move out. What we found in the smaller towns, when the major banks started to pull out, the towns were depleting. They lost the bank, they lost the news agency, they lost their local medical centres, and the towns were starting to die. What we've noticed, and history has shown, when a community bank tends to go back into those local little community strips, businesses start to come back in. So what we're really doing in this essentially is we're retaining capital back within that own community for that community to flourish.
And that is amazing. And only Bendigo Bank has that.
Yeah, look, I've been in banking 30 years. The last 13 of those, I've been in community banking. And I must admit, I have not seen any model like this, be it Australia or worldwide, that this particular model, 80% of our profits generated goes back into our local community. The remaining 20 is what's distributed back to our local shareholders who put their hand up to try and get the bank running in the form of dividends.
That means as a shareholder or something in the bank, I've got part of the dividend, but at the same time you say 80% back to the community. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yep.
What is it that comes back, in what form?
What comes back to, now you may be involved with the local school in some way.
Yes.
You might need to upgrade some sort of a facility.
Yes.
The community bank within its local catchment area will contribute some form of funding, whether it be sponsorship or a grant, back to that. Now we sponsor a lot of, you're talking sporting groups, you're talking schools, not-for-profit charities and things like that. In one way or another, we would touch every person that lives in that community. Now you might have your kids going to, or your kids might be going to creche. Now all of a sudden we will do something to help that creche out. It might be putting in air conditioners in the rooms. So you're contributing with your banking is helping us contribute our profits back to that group, even though you may not have a direct link, but it's your grandkids that are benefiting.
Now that is a great motivation for the community to get involved with this branch, isn't it? And we're going to talk a little bit later in relation to the process of this. But at the moment, generically, I would say how happy the shareholders are so far. Looks like, 305 branches in 16 years is a very, very big result. But from the community perspective, what is the feedback that you sense you've got?
I guess from my point of view, and I can only speak locally because I'm at East Malvern, the sense that I would get from our local community, our local catchment area, initially when the customers pledged their funds, it was there as a pledge to say, we just want a bank back here. And it wasn't a question of getting a return. So for the first 4 to 5 years, you're generally just trying to replenish that capital that was outlaid first. And then you start to go into profit mode. And then when dividends are being issued, the shareholders are delighted, thinking we didn't expect to be getting a dividend.
There you go.
But it's great that we are. It's great what we're doing in the community.
Thank you, George. We're going to come back after this short break. Thank you for staying with us. Welcome back to NAT, and we continue the interview with George Prodromidis, the bank manager at East Malvern with Bendigo Bank, the community bank. We did speak about the community bank, and you mentioned to us about the profits that come up. But I would like to go a little bit back, and I can say we can hear the big banks that they have huge profits and all of that. Now, with the community bank, you mentioned that we pledge to the community bank. How that pledging works, for example, in financial terms, you go to East Malvern. If I go and move to East Malvern, and I'm a small business person, a hairdresser or something, or I have a coffee shop in there, what would be your approach to explain to me in relation to how community bank can benefit me and the community?
In simple terms, from a small business, if you like, as I explained earlier, if there isn't a bank within the shopping strip, the local strip tends to deplete and moves away. Now, I guess as a small business owner, you would want a flourishing shopping strip.
Correct.
If it's not flourishing, your business doesn't flourish.
Correct.
So that is one small term in relation to that. As far as your banking and that is concerned, from a community bank's perspective, for the 13 years that I've been involved with community banking, it's been Bendigo prides itself on the level of service. And I can certainly say that for myself as well.
That means I come to you as a customer, as a normal bank customer, with my checkbooks, accounts, or whatever. Then but the benefit to the community is from being part of the shareholders of the bank, isn't it? So, you as a manager, you take the money as part of my pledge on this, and is it in shares that one? You give me a part of ownership of the branch?
So there's two sides to this. One is when a community bank actually first opens up,
yes,
there is criteria that needs to be met, as I said earlier. And part of that criteria is, and it'll vary from community bank to community bank, you've got to look at raising roughly 470 odd thousand plus dollars, or that's what it was when we first started.
Okay. From the local community? From
the local community, with a minimum shareholder number of $250.
Okay.
So that's a pledge that your mum and dad or your business will put up or put on the line.
And $250 is one share?
250 shareholders.
Shareholders, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And each individual shareholder might decide, I only want to put $500 or $10,000. They do tend to vary.
Okay.
Once that criteria is met, the capital that's raised helps establish the community branch. So you'll get the doors opened, you'll get the furniture put in, you'll employ the staff, hopefully at the local level. So that's where we retain capital within the community.
I mean, the locals own that branch?
Absolutely.
Okay.
With that, and that's the key, not only do you become a shareholder, but we would certainly love for that shareholder to also now become a customer. And it's when they're a customer, now this is where your whole world opens up here, is as a customer now, I don't know of anyone who hasn't got a bank account. So those that are at a local level, if they do their banking locally, the profits we generate from that is what then goes back into, could be in our own shopping strip, back into the schools, as I mentioned, or the kinders, and that's where we put our funding back in. So without the local community's banking or their support in banking with us, we can't do what we do in the community. So we definitely need the local community to bank with us.
That means there is an extra motivation for the local community to be involved into their own banking branch. That banking branch in itself operates in a way that gives back to the community, to the local community.
Correct, absolutely.
And that is part of the charter of the local branch, isn't it? To support the local community.
That's part of our franchise, yes.
Okay, that is quite pioneering. How does this came up as an idea 16 years ago? What really triggered that idea? It's really a pioneering idea.
It is a very pioneering idea. It did start off with our ex-managing director, Rob Hunt, who got together with the Repugnant Minyip community branch. And it literally was, as it's explained to us over the years, it was just over a coffee table, over a piece of paper. Well, this is how we think it could work. It has evolved over the years, and things have become more formalised, and this is how the model could work and how it should work. But yeah, it's a far cry from where it first started 16 years ago.
Look at that. That has been really a good journey, I suppose. And having said that, that started from the country areas to the city areas now. We have Bendigo Bank across the cities. What is, from customers' perspective, do you see a lot of appeal within the local community in the cities as well?
The demand is somewhat different in a city as opposed to country towns. And the reason I say that, in a country town, you know where your boundary is. In a city, there's overlapping boundaries. Within a 2 kilometre radius, you might have another community branch, which is separate again. So defining where your community grounds are is somewhat difficult. In an inner city area, there is a lot more, as if I could say, wealth. So identifying a need that the community needs sometimes is a little bit more difficult. Or a project that we could invest into the local community. Whereas a country town, it's a lot easier to identify.
That's right, because you have the central town, and then you have the small sort of area towns. But that means the benefits and the rewards for the branch, it is exclusive from the defined area.
Yes.
It is a defined area.
It is a defined area, Paul, in the sense of where the community branch puts its funds into. It doesn't stop, however, customers outside of the catchment area, for example, wanting to bank with that local community.
But the bank doesn't have any problem of me being customer, for example, and I live in Thornbury or Doncaster areas, for example, the banking network is not disturbed.
No.
Because of the community identity of the branch.
Correct. No, it's not.
Okay. So there is any obstacle between collaboration of the branches.
No, there isn't. And at the end of the day, the business grows depending on the manager in that branch.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So if I've got customers that live out Pakenham, Berwick, Hallam Way,
yes,
you're talking a 60-kilometre distance
yes,
away
exactly.
from where I am. They want a banking relationship. So they will bank with me.
All right.
That's irrelevant where they are. The profit we do generate, however, it's as far as the board is concerned, will stay local within our catchment area.
Okay. Thank you, George. And we're going to continue in a few moments. Please stay with us. Welcome back to NAT, and we continue our conversation about community banking with George Prodromidis from East Malvern branch of Bendigo Bank. George, let's go into a different angle of the community banking. How do you know what project to help in the local community as a local branch?
What we tend to do with the local branches or the community banks, if you like, we have what we call good for community, good for business, and it's a forum that we run.
Okay.
And we'll put on a night, and we'll call in all the key leaders within the community, and we'll sit around a table, and there could be 20, 30 of us around a table discussing ideas. And what we will do is collaborate all that information and pick up 2 or 3 common themes that might be going around. And part of it,
you're talking about leaders, talking about business leaders or sporting activities leaders or whatever it is from the community.
Leaders within the community itself.
All right.
They're the ones that are more connected than what we are.
Yes, yes.
And it's those sort of people that get to hear from their families within the group that they're involved with, what's the need. And the need might be, we need to do more with education, we need to do more with the elderly. Whatever that common theme is that comes out, we will try to pick 2 or 3 of those items and then put it back out to the community and say, this is what we would like to run with, how do you feel? And then we look at getting buy-in from the community in that respect to try and put those projects out there. And we would put the initial pledging.
And that is quite a smart idea, because you can identify what projects are really needed in the community that would have more impact to the community, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. That is even as a marketing tool, it's an excellent idea. So you can really pick and choose exactly what is needed over there and appreciate it. And do you think you have enough support from the local business as well?
Look, I would love more support, clearly.
Okay. All right.
We're in an environment at the moment where rates are very low.
Yes.
There are people that will continue to shop. And our existing managing director, Mike Hurst, he's got a great saying, if we're going to compete on rate, it's a race to the bottom of the pool. Okay, we're consistent with our rates.
Yes.
We're certainly not the cheapest in the market because we provide a great level of service.
Yes.
So from that perspective, I'd like to think that we're not out there to chase rates. We're out there to provide a service, a good product that our customers require, and they trust us. And from that perspective, we've got a great brand. The surveys all say we have a great brand. Customers appreciate and like us, and they want to do more business with us. And that's right. The customers telling us that.
That's right. And on can you give us a little bit of the size in dollars and cents, if you like, and how that help back to the community, how the community has felt so far, and the size in dollars, a little bit of statistics.
Okay. As a whole, as I said, the community bank's been running for some 16 years. It's in that period of time, and I'm talking Australia-wide now, the community banks have given in excess of $102 million back to the community.
All right.
This year, this financial year just gone, we've given back 20 million, which was Australia-wide. So in the last 5-6 years, that's had an exceptional growth level because most community branches are now becoming more profitable. So in the years to come, that figure's just going to grow. I think it was 3 years ago, we were sitting at about 60 million. So that figure's really just sort of started to creep up. At a local level, from the East Malvern perspective, we've been running some 14 years. We've given back $2.6 million back to the local community.
Very good indeed, yeah.
And I've just got a couple of statistics, if you don't mind.
Yep.
But just to give you an idea as to where that funding has gone to. But for example, the sporting clubs, be it your football club, tennis clubs and so forth, we've given back $1.3 million. Education to the schools, the kinders, disadvantaged organisations is $450,000. Community groups, which vary from cystic fibrosis or camp quality, Royal District Nursing and so forth, has had $700,000. And the other one that we do at a local level, because the board feel every community branch should have the opportunity to do exactly like what we do. In those situations, we've also given, for example, to the Charlton community branch when they had the floods that went through there, and Numurkah when, again, the cyclones and all that went through there. In those special situations, we would still give out funding which is outside our catchment area, and that was in excess of $150,000 we had given out, because we want to see our partners succeed in it as well.
Gee, that is amazing. I like, because your charter in itself contains that collaboration with the community and feeding the community back from what the community has given you in the first place, the trust doing business with you. If I can touch the last question, what is your collaboration with the government bodies? Is there any sort of collaboration with that? Do you find any support in that?
There certainly is, and it'll vary from community bank to community bank. If we touched back on the first point, which was the good for community, good for business, where we seek to get something up and running. And I'll use an example where you might need lights for your sporting ground. Okay, and that was one of the needs that was identified. The reason being is it's not one club that uses it. It might be 4 different groups that use that one facility. Now, all of a sudden, council might decide, for whatever reason, it's only 1 or 2 people that keep talking about the light, not interested. As a community bank, we're seen as the hub, if you like, and people come to us. And once they come to us and say, look, we've got a need here, like it's been identified, we need to have lights. We might start the initial pledge and say, well, okay, we'll put $10,000 on the table. You guys within the community group who use the facility, if you can put $10,000 on the table, that makes it $20,000. All of a sudden, you've got the buy-in by community. We go to council and say, there's $20,000 on the table here. We need these lighting facilities. What tends to happen, and if we work it well enough, we do sit around table with council, and we do have state and federal governments involved as well to get these bigger projects off the ground. So yes, there is collaboration.
Gee, George, I like that concept, because you work as a link between business, government bodies and the community. All of them inclusive to collaborate together to support the community. And George, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
And to the audience, thank you for watching us, the NAT Chat, and we'll see you next time, next week, same time.